And we're back. We are the Rotohackers, your unauthorized source of fantasy football
news and information.
News and information. There we go. So I'm here with AJ Herschel, the kid, and also Jared.
Which is it's delivering that line is such a letdown after AJ Herschel. I feel like we just got like
got to come up with something for you.
No,
I think I just got to come up with a way of saying it. Something like, AJ Herschel, the kid, and Jared. And I'm Judah Buddha, and we are here where I went through that. Anyway, so let's just jump right into it. AJ, you proposed that we do a first word, last word. So do any of you guys have any first words before we get started? Something, maybe unfinished business from last time, what have you? I will start off by saying we never told the story, Jared, about how we got on the same fantasy football team accidentally.
All right, in the same league. Yeah.
Same league. Yeah.
That would be really weird if we somehow got on the same fantasy football team. So the story is just that I think we've never been in a league together, even though we're friends and both play fantasy football. I don't really play private leagues anymore because unless it's for money. And so anyway, I had drafted maybe half a dozen teams or so, and I went into one of my, I think like $50 teams on Yahoo, and was just looking through the roster, looking to see if there was anybody that I could, pick up or trade or whatever. And I was looking at my week 1 opponent, and the little profile pic avatar, they're tiny, but I could see he had changed it, and this little teeny tiny face somehow looked familiar. And then I looked over at the name, and it said Judah Buddha, and I'm like, nah, surely. So I went in, clicked on the, I was on the league page, clicked on the team name, went in, and it was Judah in a little Buddha getup. He had clearly, I thought he had like superimposed his head in Photoshop on a little Buddha, like sitting there with a little yellow robe, whatever, in the little Zen position, sitting down on the floor. Nope. Turns out he had gone all the way with a green screen and actually shot a photo of himself. And he's my week 1 opponent. So
wow.
Yeah, I am the Buddha of fantasy. I prefer to remain Zen.
Yeah.
In times of crisis.
And we made a trade. So I gave him Latavius Murray for Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
And then but then I ended up turning around and trading Cooper Kupp. And
but you're a wheeler and dealer, man.
I am a wheeler and dealer. Yeah.
Got to give him a little coach test seasons ago.
I've got a Cam Newton for you if you want to trade for him.
Oh, and I've also tried to collect Tony Pollard, the Cowboys backup, in a few leagues.
Boy.
And in our league, Judah
Tony Pollard and
Darwin Thompson.
Darwin Thompson,
yeah. Darwin Thompson too. But also have Tony Pollard in our league.
Oh, you do.
And Judah has Ezekiel Elliott.
That's right.
So
it should be fun.
I also have what's his name? Carlos Hyde. So like and Anderson is it Anderson? Darwin Anderson has completely surpassed
Darwin Thompson. Yeah.
Thompson.
Right. They're talking about Hyde maybe not even making the 53-man roster. Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping he doesn't, so I have a place for a kicker. So,
wow. You didn't draft a kicker again?
I usually don't.
Oh my goodness.
There's no point. All right, what about you? Do you have anything to start us off with, AJ or Gerald?
I can go ahead and say this. I know a lot of people are high on Tevin Coleman. I don't want him. There's only one thing I hate the most in fantasy football, and it's running back by committee. And we have Matt Breida, and we have Tevin Coleman, and we're going to get Jerick McKinnon eventually when he comes finished off the injured reserve list. I don't want him.
Well, I live in Georgia, And so I saw him. I'm not really a Falcons fan, but I saw a lot of Falcons games. I pretty much see the Falcons games every week.
That's awesome.
And Atlanta's line was not good last year, and Tevin Coleman was not good. It was a huge opportunity for him with Devonta Freeman, missing basically like 14 and a half games. I think, Freeman played like two games, but not even two full games. And so Tevin Coleman had a huge, I don't remember what contract he got from the 49ers, but he had a huge opportunity to come to, create a, some big contract offers for himself. And he flopped. So he didn't produce that much by himself in Atlanta. So I have no interest in taking him with also Breida and McKinnon in the San Francisco backfield.
I don't know. I like the system. I like the coach, especially for pass running guys. So Coleman is an upright, runner. He's straight line. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle, but I don't know. I think he's dependable, catch a lot of passes. I don't think Breida is a really I think he's a better, actually smaller, but he's a better runner, like between the tackles.
Yeah.
And I'm actually I'm starting to warm up to Coleman, but I'm also trying to get a lot of McKinnon because he's so cheap. Who knows? I mean, look, here's the thing. I'll say this. I've said this once. I'll say it again, AJ.
Oh,
everybody is in a committee. There is no, there's like very few non-committees. And number two, everybody gets hurt. These committees get whittled down so
I'm the one
fast.
who says that.
You don't say nothing. All right, here we go. News and notes. We've got a lot of news that happened today, actually. So first, because I have two big shares of Zeke. He got offered the second most, so if he accepts this, he will be the second highest paid running back in the NFL, only second only to
Todd Gurley,
who, so it could be if I was offering this to be like, look, they gave Todd Gurley a ton of money, and look, he ruined their season last year.
Well, not really.
Well, he didn't even show up for the when he needed to show up. And I don't know. I would make a case like that. I'm hoping he takes it, but being number two, you know what they say, coming in second is first to lose or something like that.
Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last.
So I don't know. It might be a hard pill for Zeke to swallow to be second, especially with Gurley.
Well, it's interesting because nowadays it's almost kind of accepted that, like, if you're like somewhere kind of in the top tier of a position, whenever you get your contract, it's the biggest, for that position. Even with quarterback, you don't even have to be a top, tier quarterback. You can be a Joe Flacco, and it's expected that you will get a record-breaking contract. So, yeah, it makes sense from the Cowboys' standpoint. And it, really probably makes sense from Zeke's standpoint. How much difference is it really going to make? But I really am curious to see if he'll accept it or not.
What do you think, AJ?
If he doesn't accept it, I'm going to be genuinely shocked because he wants money. I do just think this is eventually going to put Dallas in a hole because, Cooper and Dak are both coming up on the end of their contracts, and they're giving Zeke this gigantic contract with 2 years left on his contract currently. I just don't know how it's going to stack up for Dallas. For Zeke, this is golden. For Dallas, not so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they can make it work. The thing is that quarterbacks matter more than running backs. Quarterbacks get the huge pay because they're few and far between. Like reliable good ones. Running backs, dime a dozen. They could pick up Melly tomorrow, Melly Gordon, like if they released and whatever, but there's some pretty good running backs on the market. What's his name? just got from the Browns by the Houston. No,
Duke Johnson.
Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson just got picked up. I think that's a really good pickup.
But he's not
traded.
Yeah, he's not a Zeke level running back though.
Yeah, but I mean, that at this point in the NFL, the Zeke level versus the rookie level is not that big.
Well,
that's the difference.
That's kind of the thing. You can point to a lot of examples of, teams where the running back has been interchangeable. Like I think the Broncos were really kind of the first team to just start having like interchangeable running backs that, with their running system, they were just able to produce 1,000+ yard rushers every time. Mm-hmm. And then last year we saw Todd Gurley goes down. CJ Anderson comes in, and CJ Anderson in some ways was better, in those games. And it was a very small sample size. But they proved that, when you've got a strong offense, that spreads the field, you've got room. And then the other example was Kareem Hunt last year, when he got suspended. They brought in Damian Williams, who was the backup in Miami to Kenyon Drake, or kind of at least in a committee, and he puts up huge numbers. So,
I mean, you could even point to Kamara and Ingram.
That's not a committee. We've been over this. That's not a committee. That's a running back duo.
No, but I'm not talking about committees. I'm just talking about like Ingram was getting just as good as numbers as Kamara when he came in. There wasn't that. I mean, there were different approaches, but it wasn't a huge fall off. You bring Ingram in, they don't score. Mm-hmm. In fact, he was scoring touchdowns left and right.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you said just then is the key is the fall off, because nobody's saying that the Cowboys are not a better team and don't have a better rushing attack with Ezekiel Elliott, or that, the Rams aren't better with Todd Gurley when he's healthy or whatever. But it's a question of the percentage roughly that you're losing as opposed to the percentage that you're paying them of your salary cap. And basically what more and more teams are, trying to do, what the Patriots have always done, is invest that money in other positions, get a cheap running back, and use them in that system and invest more in a defense. And so that's where it's not that, Ezekiel Elliott's not a better running back. It's just, is it worth the cost of, stripping away your money, leaving yourself not as much for other positions.
I think the other part of it is that with the New England Patriots and with the Los Angeles Rams, they still have a really solid team around them, around the rest of the offense. So they can afford to have a not exactly, highest paid running back in the league and still do well with a guy like CJ Anderson, whoever New England has every other 2 years. But the thing with the Cowboys is their entire offense got started being built around Zeke. So that starts to question, without them, who are they? Is Dak Prescott going to be able to step up with Amari Cooper and take them farther than 8-8 every year? That's the main question.
True.
Well, but I think the thing from and we're talking too much NFL. We need to get into fantasy, but
it's part of fantasy.
It kind of, yeah. The fall off in two different ways: the fall off from to the next guy, but also the fall off from year to year. These running backs the investment isn't, when you're investing into a running back, you're not investing into like 10 more years of excellence. I mean, maybe, but I mean, the average I think is like of peak performance from a running back is about 3 to 4 years, compared to like a quarterback who you could have for 20 years if you get like a
Tom Brady.
Or if you get a Tom Brady, get him for 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing on his 50th birthday.
but it is going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out with the Melly Gordon thing with Zeke. I mean, it could just be that everybody plays where they started and everybody plays the whole season, but I don't think so. I think it's getting a little shook up. Okay, other news. Anybody have any other news? So, if nobody has Cam, what do you guys think about the Cam injury tonight? He injured his foot, and he will be out. I think probably we won't see him at least until week 1.
It's Cam Newton.
Yeah, but I think that's sort of the point. Like, as a Cam Newton owner, I've been picking him up almost everywhere because I could get him late. I'm thinking, man, he got injured last year a couple times. He gets hit all the time. Is he getting too old for this?
Yeah, I've mostly avoided him. I have him in one league where I didn't really have money in the auction left for a better quarterback and ended up trading for him. But yeah, I mostly tried to avoid him. Like last year, he didn't really have his deep ball. He had a good season for most of the season, and then towards the end, he just really trailed off. And just every play that wasn't a run was a dump off to Christian McCaffrey. So I don't like trusting him. I think he's a guy that, maybe you can ride for part of the season until you find another option or something like that. But man, I would hate to play in a deeper league with him or a 2 quarterback league or something like that with him, where you're more limited in your options.
Yeah, I feel like with Cam Newton, if you do end up drafting him, I almost feel like I'm forced to draft another quarterback in a 1 quarterback league, because half the time he's coming down Saturday night, he's game time decision, and I may have to switch him out the next morning. So it's almost like a liability almost. You got to be extremely careful with him.
Yeah, and even when he's healthy, I tend to forget. I think I've been picking him up because he's so cheap lately. But I've always avoided him because even when he's healthy, he'll have like 40-point games, and then his next game he'll have like a 7 to 14-point game. Like talking fantasy, it's really up and down. And I think mainly because if he doesn't get his running in, if he doesn't get a running touchdown in, it can really make or break his fantasy points.
Yeah, he can be boom or bust.
Another guy now, AJ talked about playing doctor today, and maybe we should, because another guy who is down, another brittle boy, is Jordan. What's his name?
Jordan Reed.
Jordan
Reed. That was the one
Again.
thing. That was the one thing I was gonna maybe say as a piece of news. I mean, it's only if you're probably in a deeper league, or you think that you're an extremely savvy fantasy football player who's going to get that Jordan Reed breakout year. But that guy, so it looks like another concussion, and he's one of those guys that he probably at this point needs to hang it up, unless he really needs the money. And it's sad because I mean he was fantastic for like a year when he had like a healthy year, and there were a couple others where he was great when he was in there, but he just can't stay healthy.
Yep.
Well, so maybe you guys can illuminate. You guys are better at understanding the game. Is it just me, or do tight ends tend to have the same kind of rough time? They have a short-lived career. They seem to get banged up more than wide receivers do. Somewhat not as bad as running backs, but is it because they're doing a lot of interior blocking and that, are they in the middle a lot, or what's the deal here?
Yeah, I mean, not only are they doing more blocking. Well, number one, there's a bigger curve for the position. So rarely do you ever see like a rookie tight end, or really even a lot of times a second-year tight end, do much. Usually it takes till about the 3rd year. And then, I mean, not only, and because of that, because they're doing a mix of blocking and, route running and all that. But so then they're not only taking that punishment on the line, but when they're going out, a lot of times they're going over the middle, and they're not, and not only are they going over the middle, like they're not getting tackled by cornerbacks, they're getting hit by linebackers and safeties. Yeah. So it is like a really tough position. You've got to have some pretty good, genetics to, survive that kind of beating.
It's really difficult, especially when you think about how the tight end position has really changed, especially getting into this last 10 years, because typically tight ends were mostly used for blocking for the longest time. And now finally we get people like Rob Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham, when he was actually still an amazing pass catching tight end. And now people like Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, who block occasionally, but now they're basically being used almost like wide receivers half the time. They catch as many balls as wide receiver twos in various teams. So their workload is extremely different.
Well, and the other thing too is like even when they're not getting tackled because they are so big. I mean, a small tight end usually is 6'4". Then you get guys that are 6'5". You get a guy like Gronkowski that is like 6'6". So not only are they taking bigger hits from bigger guys when they're getting tackled by linebackers or safeties, but when they do get tackled by the smaller guys, those guys are going for their legs. They're going for their knees and ankles because they can't tackle them any other way. Yeah. So they're more, Gronkowski had all kinds of, foot and knee injuries that kept him dinged up. Jimmy Graham, like you said, he's having a lot of problems. So they run the risk with that too, because a cornerback's not going to try to tackle them like a receiver. They're going to try to, go low for them.
Right.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense. Kind of is similar to what I was thinking, but that gives me a lot more details. The next thing we need to talk about, unless there's any other news you guys want to cover, just looks like people doing great in the in the preseason. Next thing we need to do is, I would say, the precursor to our what do we call it? The sleeper wire. We are going to do a little thing I like to call, I forget what I called it, something like late round gems.
Oh, fine.
Late round gems. So a lot of people are drafting. Jared, you just got done the draft. Yours was a auction. You tend to like the auction drafts, but so what we're going to focus on right now is who are some good ideas for late round. Say you don't take a kicker. Say you don't take a defense. Mm-hmm. That would be me. I don't like one of those. Who should I take, or who should whoever take to get a little gem, to get a little treasure in there? Maybe a little egg, hoping he'll hatch.
Sure.
A little too far with the analogy.
A little Pokemon that you gotta catch. You gotta catch them all in the late rounds. So what I did in my auction draft was, and it's basically the same principle as some of the late round stuff, or similar principle to taking guys in the late rounds. With auction drafts, you save some of your money at the end for bench guys or whatever. But in terms of the late round, it's the same principle. What I'm trying to do a lot this year is take backup running backs, because I feel like this year more than ever, there are so many question marks with whether a guy's holding out, or a guy who's injury prone, or whatever the case may be, that a guy that may be in a committee. So in late rounds, I'm trying to get guys like Tony Pollard, the Cowboys backup, because we don't know what's going to happen with Ezekiel Elliott. But the nice thing about that situation too is you've got a clear guy who would step in for Zeke if he doesn't end up playing. Whereas with certain other situations, like with the Rams, with Todd Gurley, if Todd Gurley's knee ends up being a bigger problem, who's that going to be? Is it going to be Malcolm Brown? Is it going to be John Kelly, who they drafted last year? Is it going to be the guy Henderson, I think it is? Probably some combination of them. So the thing I like about Pollard is, he's the clear backup. And so just, a few more guys like that, like Darwin Thompson, who we've talked about a little bit, is the backup in Kansas City. I think he was like a 6th round pick, but looks like he's already leapfrogged Carlos Hyde as the number 2 running back. And really, when you got a guy like Damian Williams, who was the number 2 running back to Kenyon Drake in Miami last year, he put up great numbers in that Kansas City offense. But is Darwin Thompson going to be able to put up even better numbers? Is he going to leapfrog Williams at some point in the season? So that's a couple of guys.
No, that's good. How about you, AJ?
As much as I would love to say Adrian Peterson, I don't think I can, unfortunately. But one of the guys I really have been looking at a lot is, I know he's injury prone. It's the last thing I want to do typically is to draft a player that's typically gets injured every year. But I'm seeing Sammy Watkins fall down to almost round 15 sometimes in drafts. I think that he's a steal at that point, that late in the draft. I know Tyreek Hill is obviously still going to be the number one, but I feel like Sammy Watkins on average could become about a wide receiver two at best, but wide receiver 3, like mainstay, I would say. And then also I think, what's his name? I just lost it. Shoot.
Who's it play?
Sorry. Corey Davis. That's what it's called. Corey Davis is who I'm talking about. He's being taken like round 12, round 13. I honestly think that's a steal as well. I think Marcus Mariota in Tennessee is going to progress this year. I don't know how much NFL-wise the team's going to do. I don't think they're going to do that great. But fantasy-wise, I think Corey Davis could really take a next step forward.
Well, what might be even better for him is one of the things I read the other day is like there's like a legitimate quarterback competition in Tennessee between Mariota and Tannehill. And that might actually be Tannehill might actually be better for him because Marcus Mariota, Corey Davis in theory is a great wide receiver. He was drafted, I think, like the 4th pick in the draft a few years ago. And Marcus Mariota just cannot seem to get the ball to him. So, I think maybe if Tannehill ends up winning that, even though Tannehill obviously isn't the most consistent quarterback either, it could work out better for a guy like Davis.
Yeah, it's funny. Both Tannehill and Mariota, I could easily see them both. Who's the backup? Who's the third backup? Because I could easily see both of them getting hurt.
And they're both like so they're similar. They're like great athletes, but they're not great pure quarterbacks.
Right. Exactly.
And just a little quick side note, maybe you saw it too. The notification popped up on my phone that
walking boot.
Cam's in a walking boot. Yep.
Well, I'm gonna have to lean on. I go actually. So I've been trying to take a lot of running backs early, and then try to follow up. This is my latest strategy. Take a lot of quarterbacks, just opposite of zero RB, and then I have to sort of scramble for wide receivers. But in the late round is where I'm finding a couple of gems. I've been, I would call them gems. So I think that like as far as quarterback goes, I think Jackson's going to be a top 10 hot take here, a top 10 quarterback. I think he's going to have close to 1,000 yards running. Maybe say low end 700 yards running, and then if he just connects with say he gets 15 touchdowns, and runs 5 or 6 in, this guy's going to be top 10. So he's the guy he's who I've got backing up right now in most of my leagues, Cam Newton. So we'll see if he turns out to be a gem or a dud. Well, go ahead. Looks like you want to say something.
Now, I was just going to say, I like the fact that you're kind of bemoaning Cam being boom or bust because of being a running quarterback, and you have him backed up with a running quarterback.
But here's the thing: the difference is Cam has really not been that great of a running quarterback lately.
Since his first 2 seasons. Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Whereas there's nobody that runs as much as Jackson.
Yeah,
at least last year, compared to Of course, last year was his first year. Who knows what it'll be like this year? It might be. As we've talked about before, coaches get tape. They start to shut people down. But here's somebody who's got a really seasoned, smart coach, and who is in a great system. I think he's going to be a formidable quarterback this year.
I'd just be a little bit worried about his division though, because he's gonna have to play Steelers twice and Browns twice. And now, while neither of with the exception of the Steelers, while the Browns aren't necessarily an amazing defense, they have a solid defense at least. So I'd just be worried if he doesn't get that chemistry. I'd be worried with Mark Ingram at the beginning of the year. I'd be worried the teams are just going to start wising up to him, and he's going to dip as the season goes on.
Well, he very well could, and doing so much running, it's probably going to be. He's a small guy. It's going to wear on his body. But and then I'll just have to stream quarterbacks. So
what do you think of what? So while we're on the topic of running quarterbacks, not that this guy's really as much of a running quarterback, but so what do you see out of Kyler Murray this year? Because I mean, he's a runner, but not to the level of Jackson. But like people are just, the analysts like ESPN and a couple of the Yahoo analysts are just expecting him to be like. They've got him at like 8 at worst, and they're thinking he might even push for like a top 5 finish. Rookie quarterback.
Arizona,
where Larry Fitzgerald is not 27-year-old Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald is like 37-year-old Larry Fitzgerald. So no offensive line. I just don't see that. What do you see?
Have any of you guys seen? Did any of you guys see him in the preseason?
No, I just know that he had a good first game. I mean, for like the 1 or 2 series that he played or whatever. And then the second game, he was horrendous.
Yeah. I watched him both times, and both times I did not see a confident. It's funny because the announcers, these announcers, but they're saying, oh, he throws with such ease. He looks so confident out there. And I'm looking at this guy scramble around for his life and thinking, what are we seeing the same guy? I'm really worried. I was really high on David Johnson, and I've come way down on him, and I'm starting to trade him away because I'm so worried about. Now it's preseason. I always tell myself, don't make major decisions based on preseason. But I saw something, we talked about before, seeing something in a person's eyes where I was just like, man,
wearing a helmet.
Huh?
How are you seeing him from a sky view?
You know how it is. You see, you see the way they
do close-ups. They do close-ups. They zoom in.
But you know what I'm talking about. You see the ways people are reacting, and I don't know. I just got a gut feeling. I'm like, oh, he does not. This does not look like when Dak came. I always say Dak, right? Yeah, Dak Prescott. I always say Dax. This time I said it right, and I second guess was. Anyways, so when Dak came out, like he had an air of like boom, boom, boom. And I think we know what the biggest difference is this offensive line. The offensive line is terrible in Arizona.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And the poor guy doesn't have time to learn because he's got the other team up his grill in seconds. What do you think, AJ?
Yeah, Arizona scares me so much. Last year, I remember when David Johnson got injured, and I'm just like, okay, sure. People are still taking him first round. I don't trust Arizona at all for David Johnson, for Kyler Murray, for Larry Fitzgerald, because while all these players have talent in their own respective right, I don't trust Arizona at all. I definitely don't trust them in the NFC West at all, because all the other 3 teams in their division are so much better. And I definitely don't see a first-year quarterback, even if Kyler Murray could be very good, I don't see him thriving in Arizona unless something has to change in the offensive line.
I agree. My other guy I was going to say, and I don't know, like I'm kind of changing the rules for for what I like, but what I kind of consider a gem is Marquise Lee. I've been kind of going around looking for IR guys to stick on. Wherever I have an IR now, Marquise Lee just came off the IR. It's kind of screwing up my little strategy here, but I have him in a lot of leagues because I was doing that, and I it's been a little disappointing as news comes out that it's going to take him a while to get back into the game, which is understandable. He hasn't played for a year, but I think he could be at least a number three, a solid number 3 wide receiver. What do you guys think about two guys, Demaryius Thomas and Marquise Lee?
Demaryius Thomas, I don't even know what's going on with Demaryius Thomas. Whose roster is he on?
New England.
Okay. I think the problem for him is you've got Julian Edelman, who's been out, but he's going to be ready to go for the season. You've got, well, at least temporarily, Josh Gordon back. Mm-hmm. So Josh Gordon may not stick around like usual, but while he's there, he's going to be favored over Demaryius Thomas. You've got N'Keal Harry that they drafted at the end of the first round. Oh, yeah. So I have heard nothing about Demaryius Thomas. Like, I wasn't even sure if he was still in
the league,
the Patriots roster anywhere. Yeah. So I don't know about him. And I think the thing with Jacksonville, the guy that keeps getting talked up for Jacksonville is Dede Westbrook.
Yeah, I have him almost all my teams.
I have him on several. Yeah. So there is an opportunity there with Foles coming in, because basically Dede Westbrook had no quarterback last year. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a possibility there. I think that the only trouble may be if Lee does come back, like, who's going to be the guy. It seems like Jacksonville is going to be a running team as long as Fournette's healthy. Is there really enough to go around for Dede Westbrook and Marquise Lee and some of those other guys in Jacksonville? I'm just not sure if any of those guys really separate from one another.
Yeah, my thing with that is just with the Jaguars, it all hinges on Leonard Fournette. Because we saw 2 years ago, Jaguars have Fournette, they go to the AFC Championship. Last year, no Fournette, they finished 4-12 or however they finished like that. I don't see Lee becoming a huge factor. We don't know how well Foles is going to do in the regular season. And he's playing in the AFC South, where all of the teams have varying degrees of how well they could do. They all have relatively high ceilings. And so I don't know if the Jaguars are going to be able to keep up with the competition, period, let alone as a wide receiver 2 going to be able, once he gets healthy, to come out and be a regular starter in fantasy.
Yeah, but that kind of tells me in fantasy that they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. They, of course, they have a good defense, but they're not facing a lot of tough defenses.
Yeah, but we just still don't know how they're going to perform in general. That's just the whole thing. Jacksonville, to me, Jacksonville just has too many question marks.
Right, but
too many unknowns.
I'm just talking about guys you can get for free. Marquise Lee, you pick him up off the waiver or put it on your. You can't put him on your IR anymore. But Demaryius Thomas, you can, and he was seen. He was seen in pads. They say he's coming off the PUP list within the next week.
I would rather take Demaryius Thomas over Marquise Lee simply because the Patriots already have a more balanced offense. We know how their offense is, for the most part, pretty much going to run. And so when he does come in, if there's a place for him, then he could be of some use in fantasy. I feel like he's a safer bet than Marquise Lee right now.
I don't like either of them. I think there's got to be another guy that you can find on the waiver wire that has higher upside than both of those guys.
Well, let me bring this one up to you. Speaking of wait, I lost it. Where was I? Speaking of Jacksonville, the Jaguars. Was Jaguars we're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, Jacksonville Jaguars.
What do you guys think of Raquel Armstead? I've been picking him up. I think just 2 leagues because somebody mentioned, that he is the backup for Leonard Fournette. And Leonard Fournette, I don't think, has he made it through one season yet, all the way through?
I
No.
don't think so.
And he's got so many, so much baggage and antics to deal with. What do you guys think of just, at the end of your bench throwing a little Armstead on there? He's not a bad player.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was just going to say, you go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you've got Armstead in the lineup right now, but you got to remember Jacksonville's also got Alfred Blue on their lineup as well.
You're making my point.
But that's the thing. I don't know who is going to come out on top. Like Jared, you were saying with either Demaryius Thomas or Marquise Lee finding someone better. I feel like you could find a better handcuff or a better second running back to pick up on the waiver wire.
I know. Yeah. I'm just talking about some of these deep leagues where, you're just scratching for anything. You got to get a gem in there,
Yeah, for a deep league, maybe so. I mean, the thing is, if he gets established as the clear backup in Jacksonville, absolutely, yeah. Because Leonard Fournette, I don't think will make it through a season. He burned me in multiple leagues last year by here Leonard Fournette's hamstring, it's healthy, it's healthy now. Oh, 2 plays in, oh no, he's hurt it again. So I am like I have so little Leonard Fournette stock because he's a guy that I thought like his price might be low enough this year that you could maybe get him in the 5th round or something like that, which I would be comfortable with. Right. But he's going over a lot of other guys that I would rather take before him. So, just the thing with Jacksonville, again, going back to that is like, there's several teams like Cincinnati, Giovanni Bernard's the clear backup, Dallas, Pollard's the backup, Minnesota, Madison is the backup. Detroit is another one where Kerryon Johnson, he can be frail. He was frail in college. He got hurt his rookie season last season, and they signed C.J. Anderson away from the Rams. C.J. Anderson could end up, and they've got, again, like I look ahead to Week 15 matchups because it doesn't do you any good to get to the playoffs if you lose your first playoff game. And Detroit plays the horrendous Tampa defense in Week 15. So that's one that could, set up a good fantasy situation for either Kerryon Johnson or if he's hurt, C.J. Anderson.
Okay. I mean, it's just a little hard, though, to predict what defenses will look like in Week 15. Tampa they picked up some pretty decent rookies in their rush and their line. Defensive line.
Question mark, though. They're still rookies. We need to see how they perform.
Yeah, but football is a question mark. I mean, Week 15, that's what I'm saying, is Week 15 is a huge question mark as far as what somebody's defense is going to look like.
True, but, I mean, again, you can't predict it for sure, but you can kind of look and see, like, okay, what have they looked like in the preseason? Pretty rough. Yeah. What were they last season? Pretty rough. Yeah. And so if you've got 2 things going against them, like, that's enough for me to at least, like, look ahead a little bit. I don't take guys, fully based on that, but I do look ahead a little bit.
Also, Bruce Arians doesn't tend to put much focus on the defense.
No.
All offense. One last guy to consider. Rookie. Can't think of his name. The backup.
You've got to get.
I'm terrible. I can't.
You got to get a list.
Get a list. But the backup for old Shady McCoy, rookie
Singletary.
There we go. I've been keeping an eye out for Singletary. Devin Singletary. You can get him. So not as late as you guys are talking about. Maybe more like the 10th round. Actually, I've seen him go in the 12th round some places. But I mean, who's ahead of him?
Frank Gore.
Okay. Frank Gore and Shady McCoy, 2 guys who are going to be hobbling out there on a walker, to play a little tackle football. I'm going to go ahead and put my money on the young dude.
The only other problem, though, is Josh Allen ran a lot last year.
True.
So it's almost like, to me, it's like a lesser version of the Ravens situation where the Ravens have Lamar Jackson at quarterback, who I think is a good, safe I don't know if he's top 10, maybe he ends up being, but sort of like, he might be, around the top 10. He's going to get some points. I think Mark Ingram is going to do well as a RB1. But then they've also got a couple of guys like Gus Edwards and Justice Hill that are going to do things. The problem with the Bills situation is that, like, Allen, it's a lesser offense. Allen is a lesser quarterback, and is one of those three guys really gonna get enough of a share of the load to produce meaningful fantasy numbers?
Well, that could be a seesaw argument, though, as a lot of times, like, he's a running quarterback, he's going to steal touchdown, he's going to run in some touchdowns. But on the other hand, you also hear, and you can see often, that running quarterbacks produce really good running backs because of the read option, because it opens up lanes that you would normally see with a pocket quarterback.
But the thing with that is, like last year, we saw Lamar Jackson run the run pass option decently well, fooled a lot of people. Are the Bills going to be able to do that? Are they going to be able to fool a lot of people with the run pass option? And I don't know where you're seeing, what's his name, Singletary being taken in the 10th round. I don't know how many teams are in your league. Because in mine, wherever I'm drafting, Shady's being picked up 13th round, for crying out loud.
Shady's been okay.
Oh yeah, he's going real late. And by the time,
maybe it's because I'm always picking him up.
let's say though Shady does get injured, and let's say Frank Gore does get beat up, and Singletary does come in. More than likely, that's going to be near the end of the year, and their last teams they're facing are the Cowboys, Ravens, Steelers, and Patriots, which are not defenses that I really want to start him against. They're not really exceptional defenses. I don't know if I want to start a third string running back in the Bills' offense against them.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's got skill, and I think the thing that does bother me is I recall Jon Stewart of The Daily Show. No, Jonathan Stewart and Cam Newton. Sharing. Who was he sharing? There's a guy who ended up with the what was his name? He ended up backing up Lev Bell the next year.
Oh, D'Angelo Williams.
Yeah, D. Williams. So Jonathan Stewart, I thought, was a really talented running back, but vultured by D. Williams and Cam. So I could see a scenario like that. But I really think one thing I'm higher on. I'm much more in love with Josh Allen than you guys, and I think having John Brown on the team is going to really open things up.
Brown was hurt a lot. He stays hurt a lot. I don't know. I don't know about that.
He wasn't hurt much last year.
Yeah, but again, the Ravens didn't throw the ball that much. So,
well, yeah, true. But Josh, I think Josh throws a lot more than Jackson. Jackson didn't throw at all last year. And before Jackson was what's his name? He's with I can't think of anybody's name. He's got the nice hair now. He's with the Colt Broncos.
Joe Flacco.
Flacco threw a lot to John Brown.
Flacco's in Denver.
I know, but he wasn't last year.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, a lot of these guys, I think they're fine for 12-team leagues or so. But the most of the 12-team leagues or bigger, most of the guys we've talked about, I'm in 10 leagues, and I haven't seen hardly any of them on any rosters. I was when Judah, when you were saying maybe it's me who's drafting, I was just laughing at you, going back and looking and be like, man, it seemed like Devin Singletary was going in the 12th round in all these drafts. Wait, every single time it was me taking him.
It's very possible.
I think it's more than possible. I think it's probable.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I just think there's some guys that I guess maybe for when we get to the final thoughts in a minute, I'll look through some of the guys on my waiver wires and see who's a receiver that I would say maybe to target on the waiver wire.
Judah Buddha has single-handedly raised Devin Singletary's ADP by 3 points.
All right, you guys watch. David Moore and Devin Singletary. Keep an eye out. I'm planting some flags, baby. All right, well, get your list up because it is time for the final word. And it's time for the final word.
It sounded like something was going to follow that.
Yeah,
really buzz killed it. Really buzz killed it.
So do any of you guys have any final words before we take off? We've been here quite a long time discussing some good thoughts. Definitely some good plans, and I think I've changed my mind at least on one player.
Which one was that?
Nah, I can't think of him.
Why am I not surprised?
But then will you forget that you have changed your mind on him since you can't remember who he is?
You know who I agree with you guys is not Singletary. I'm actually I'm going to start drafting him 8th round now.
Oh, good.
But
please do that in our league. I'll be perfectly fine with that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna. Do you want to stream it live on here tomorrow?
I mean, we got to check it with everybody else, but continue. Move on. In the middle of the show.
All right, so I can't remember. There was somebody you guys swayed me on, but all right. Final thoughts. You guys talk. I'll look at. Yeah, Marquise Lee. I'm definitely dropping tomorrow. What was I thinking?
AJ, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I know a lot of people have been watching the whole Kenyon Drake versus Kalen Balaj duo to see who's going to come out on top. And Drake just came out of the walking boot and he's back jogging again. But the thing is, I don't want either of them. Drake was the most annoying person to have on my team last year because he literally every other week would score 2 and then the next week would score 20. Literally every other week.
Well, when he's running from end to end and jumping over, Gronkowski in the end zone.
Once. And Gronkowski missed the dive for the record. But I don't trust the Dolphins. I feel like I've said this like 6 times this game, but there's so many teams in the NFL who have talent on their teams. I just don't trust them in the league. I don't see it happening right now with Miami.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking to somebody who just drafted both of them, right?
Well, but only in one league because they were dirt cheap at the end of an auction draft. I don't actually trust them either. But it was basically just like too good to pass up on that. So I guess a couple of guys that I'm looking at this year, like a receiver that I'm thinking that if you are, especially if you're an AJ Green owner, but maybe even otherwise, if you're looking for like a last bench spot, is AJ Green may miss half the year. And the Bengals offense last year was good enough to support 2 wide receivers with AJ Green and Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
So for half the year, you may have, another guy in there beside Boyd as John Ross, who, was a highly touted pick himself.
Very fast.
Yeah. And really the guy that they were kind of expecting to emerge as the number 2 guy opposite Green, a year or 2 ago. And it ended up being Boyd. So, maybe with Green being out, Ross ends up, stepping in. Maybe it's only half the season, but, he could give you some pretty good numbers maybe for half the season. And, injuries with ankle injuries and things like that, there's high rate of re-aggravation. So you could end up who knows how much AJ Green will play this year. So I think Ross is a guy to look at. And then a couple of tight ends that aren't really sleeper tight ends. They're going towards the kind of right inside the top 10 of a lot of the top analysts, but they're still on the wire in most of my leagues if I don't have a spot for them. But it's Mark Andrews of the Ravens and Austin Hooper of the Falcons.
Oh, that guy.
And Andrews has just been like the guy that everybody's been raving about in Ravens camp, and
Raving about him.
Yeah, they've been no pun intended. They've been raving about him, and I feel like Lamar Jackson is going to, when he throws the ball, is going to need a bigger, closer target to hit than a smaller wide receiver farther down the field. So I think there is a good chance that Andrews could put up some good numbers in that offense. If we want to compare Lamar Jackson to Michael Vick, it was a very similar situation early in Michael Vick's career because he had Algie Crumpler. Vick was terrible at hitting his receivers early on, but Algie Crumpler put up some big numbers at tight end for him. So could be a similar situation there. And then, like I said, like using that as a transition to the Falcons, Austin Hooper had a couple of big games early last year, and then really just didn't do much after that. But when they had Tony Gonzalez there, Matt Ryan loved to throw to his tight end, and he really just hasn't had a true receiving tight end capable of being, a top guy since then. They tried Levine Toilolo. He was a blocker. They tried, a couple other guys, and Hooper now in his third year is really just now to the point where he could potentially be a consistent threat. And since they let Mohamed Sanu go, you'll have.
When did they let Mohamed Sanu go?
Just sometime during off season, I think. I'm pretty sure he's not there anymore. Now I'm second guessing myself.
Wow, I did not hear that. That would be okay. Well, that changes my mind for sure.
I think he's still in Atlanta. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe. Did I just make?
Yeah, he's still in Atlanta, I think.
Let's see. Where is Mohamed Sanu? Did I just make this up that they let him go?
I don't know.
He just went 3 for 7 in their last preseason game. He's still in Atlanta.
That's crazy. I thought for sure. Okay. Well, I thought he was gone.
You pulled the Judah.
What's that?
You pulled the Judah.
I did pull a Judah. Yeah. Although actually, when I pull it up on my phone, the second article is there room for Mohamed Sanu in Dirk Cutter's offense? So
he could still get cut. This is what the preseason often is a competition to see who's going to stay. And Ridley is going to suck up a lot of that, energy.
I doubt he gets dropped though. I think he'll just be the wide receiver 3 in Atlanta.
Probably so. Unless I don't remember what he's making. It's probably not.
I agree with. I really agree with your Hooper analysis. So everywhere I've picked him up, what's nice is Yahoo has him projected for I think if it's half point PPR about 9-10 points a game, which is high for a tight end.
Okay, let's be honest though. Yahoo's projection very skewed.
I hear that, but it is still a bunch of analysts that see him as a pretty big offensive threat.
Yeah. I think he will be. I think he's going to grow. I mean, I could see him, potentially ending up being, maybe the number 7 tight end, something like that. Because, there's some guys that they've been hyping up, like Vance McDonald in Pittsburgh. Vance McDonald, the coach, said the other day, is not going to play anymore. Like they thought play any more than what he was before. He's not retiring.
Breaking news all over the place.
No. He's not retiring anything. It was just assumed that because he split with Jesse James in the past, that he would, now that Jesse James was gone, he would get, more of those snaps. And they said, no, look, he's had some trouble staying healthy. We're going to let Biddle still split with him. So Vance McDonald may not put in the kind of year that, people are thinking, well, so I could see Hooper, sneaking up and maybe even, leapfrogging, somebody like Hunter Henry. There's a lot of mouths to feed in that San Diego offense. And that's
Especially
just
since Henry was very inconsistent last year.
well, he was he got hurt, so then they brought Antonio Gates back,
right?
And then so I think I think Hooper could end up being a steal late.
Yes, absolutely.
I just
Okay.
have one question for you, Jared, real quick.
Yeah.
Since you were talking about AJ Green and his injury history, and what do you think of John Ross and his injury history? Because he didn't play a full season last year and hurt himself at the combine, for crying out loud.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. And I think, this year it's been hard to get much of a look at him because I think he hadn't really, been able to show much in preseason or whatever. But the nice thing about it is he's got an opportunity there to be the number 2 receiver, and you can get him as a 15th round pick or off the waiver wire. Yeah, so there's no real risk for you other than having if you have a guy on your bench that you can't afford to drop for him.
True.
Okay, guys. Well, we've hit the hour mark. I'd like to wrap things up. I'd like to leave my last word. I'd like to leave you guys with the word.
Don't say Danny Woodhead.
Danny Woodhead. No, my little woodchuck. Why'd you have to bring him up? I miss him. No, arbitrage. I think I'm going to challenge myself more this year. In the next couple, I've got a couple of drafts coming up this weekend and the next weekend. I'm going to force myself to draft guys that I believe in skill-wise, but that burnt most people last year. Leonard Fournette is the word came up for me when you started talking about how much you hated him from last year. But he is also one I don't know if I believe in his skill. But someone like Ross or even Drake. I think someone like Sony Michel burnt a lot of people last year. These are guys that I believe in their skill. I believe they're skilled guys, and might have just and they've really fallen in the draft. Now, Leonard Fournette, you're right.
Or
not
Sony. He's still going 7th round.
7th round is pretty low for a starting running back.
Yeah, I've seen him go like a lot of 5th and 6th round. But in my auction round tonight, he went for $12. Like I didn't have money left, so I couldn't get him. But man, $12 is a steal for $12.
So, anyways, arbitrage. Just trying to buy on people that everybody is low on, for maybe not. For maybe not logical reasons, or even if it is logical reasons, they're so low. If you're buying up a lot of cheap commodities, and can wind up one can be a lottery ticket.
Yeah, Gurley maybe. I mean, because people are so afraid that it's going to be just a full committee, but if you're able to take him in the bottom of the 2nd round or something like that, or in auction drafts he's going for like $37-$38, whereas Saquon Barkley is going for 75. You could get a steal there.
Absolutely. Yeah, Saquon's definitely risen to the number 1. I most places I see him now with all the worries about everybody else. I've seen him just be, he's going to be in a bad offense, but you know what? Everybody else gets what's.
Funny thing, I was talking to what's his name, PT the part-timer yesterday, and he did a mock draft last night, and he told me that he had the 2nd pick and he got Saquon Barkley because the person who took first took Tom Brady for some reason.
that was a running joke in my draft tonight. There was a guy who was like, that's so funny because this was a running joke in my draft. This guy was like, I'm getting Tom Brady. I'll pay up to $35 for him. Wow. And then he somebody drafted him and he ended up going for like $5 or $6 in the auction draft, which is he ended up going for more than Baker Mayfield and Andrew Luck.
Wow.
And then somebody was joking, was like, I'll trade you Saquon Barkley for Tom Brady straight up, So that's funny. That's so funny that was happening over there. Oh my gosh. I wish I was in that league. I hope it wasn't a pay league.
It was not. It was not.
Oh, okay.
It was not.
You know,
That's
we
fair.
need AJ. We need to get you in an auction league because there is so much. There's so many different levels, more levels than a regular snake draft. Because there's like I've found that you can do psychological, you know, strategies where
Mhm.
you can like. So if you have a early pick, you know, so if you have an early, your pick means you don't pick somebody, you pick somebody to put out there for everybody to bid on.
Okay.
And I've seen that this is a good idea. I haven't had the early picks, I haven't been able to, but putting your favorite or second favorite kicker or defense as one of the first picks, because everybody's like, what is this? Let them have it, you know, and you get it for $1, you know.
The funniest one that I ever saw, this was last year, because last year was the first year that I started doing auction drafts, and I can't remember who it was, but there was like a backup, like a fourth string guy for one of the teams who had the same name as it was. Like I can't remember what it was.
Was it David Johnson
too?
I don't.
There was a tight end named David Johnson, I think.
No, this was somebody that had the same name as like a running back. It was like Melvin Gordon. It wasn't Melvin Gordon, but it was something like that. It as like a receiver, and they would put him out there as the number one pick. And someone ended up bidding like $30, and it went for like $30. It was crazy. It was so funny because I saw people do this over and over in one, because I was in several auction leagues, and nobody would really take the bait, and a lot of times they would end up stuck with him for $1. But one time it finally worked, and somebody bid like up to like $30 for him.
If you want to do that this year, there's one. It won't work as well as it did earlier in the summer, but A. Brown, he played. You know, he's a wide receiver for he's a rookie this year. It's not.
There's like multiple A. Browns this year. Yeah.
But I've seen he kind of looks like him when his picture comes up. He looks like Antonio Brown a little bit.
Okay.
And so I've seen that kind of happen with that, where somebody put him up there thinking that he was Antonio Brown, and nobody bid on him. You know. So now another trick that I had, but this is a little different. I was in an IDP league where you have to pick defensive players, but it was like this huge, long. You had to pick so many. So I was worried I wasn't going to have enough money at the end of my draft. I started spending way too early for defensive players. So I just started bidding every time it was my turn. I just grabbed some random defensive guy so that I could fill the places on my bench. And then later I just went to, nobody knows defensive players. So later I got Ndamukong Suh. I don't know. Is he not playing this year? Why didn't anybody pick him up?
J-Mac person up here.
I got some really good players, you know, and I just had to swap them in and out. And I paid $1, you know?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Something to think about. Anyways, we've gone over. It's been a good talk.
Very.
Any final last thoughts?
Oh my gosh.
I think I'm tapped out on final thoughts.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for joining me today. And I hope you guys' drafts go well this weekend. AJ, particularly yours, because I'm tired of winning in that league. And
what? Let's be specific.
And I hope you guys come back and tell us about your spoils. Your spoils.
Will do.
Hey, Judah Buddha, how's your friend Terrell Pryor doing?
Gotta go.